I would like to call the Monday, May 17th, 2021 Orange Board of Education meeting to order at 7:04. Could we all please stand for the pledge? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Carmen, would you be kind enough to read the mission statement, please?
The Orange Elementary School District recognizes that the education of each child is the shared responsibility of every member of our community. Our goal is to inspire and empower each student to achieve academic excellence, embrace social and individual responsibility, and lead with integrity. We believe all individuals should be valued and treated with respect. Together, we will make a difference.
Very much. Do we have any public participation? Anyone? Very well. It says on your agenda, no correspondence. We have some impromptu correspondence. As you can see, Mr. Ziman is not here this evening. He is now the proud grandfather of a Audrey Marie Pollock, 7 pounds, 11 ounces. Born today, correct, Dr. Scarpetti? Yeah, what a cute little girl.
Wonderful news.
Unbelievable.
Congratulations to the Ziman family.
So Mr. Ziman will not be here this evening. I would like to take a moment to thank the board for their kind words. The card that was sent came not last Friday, the Friday before, and quite honestly, at that point in time, I had about had it with my shoulder and the surgery and everything else. And it meant a lot to me, and it also meant a lot to my wife, and I thank you all for your thoughts, and I do appreciate the card very, very much. Thank you. And also, this happens to be Mrs. Brow's birthday, and I was just informed she's 39 today, so congratulations to Mrs. Brow.
Birthday, Kim.
All right, consent agenda. I will need a motion to accept the items under the consent agenda. The items are the regular session minutes from the April 19th, 2021 Board of Education meeting. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes from the April 19th, 2021 Board of Education meeting? Anyone? Ken? Susan? Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very well. Superintendent's report. Dr. Scarpetti?
Good evening, board members. Months ago, the district introduced a COVID-19 dashboard. You may recall that we had to be very careful of the information we were sharing out of faculty and students who may have contracted the virus or were going on quarantine. But we also wanted to communicate with the community that this was going on. And so we devised the dashboard. And I'm very happy to say, since the inception of that dashboard, today, we have 0 staff and children that do not have the virus and that are not quarantined. It's kind of nice to see that. With that shows symbolically what's happening here. In fact, in the school system and the community, it's a symbol of change for the positive, and we like to celebrate that as much as we can with the minimum amount of days that we have. Part of that symbolism is also what we're doing at the end of the year. You may recall last year around this time, our faculty had to be prepared for promotion ceremonies. And they had the promotion parades. And they did a fantastic job doing those things. Now, with the events that we are celebrating this year, we're able to do a field day and a promotion. The promotion ceremonies will be out of school. Will be outside of school. With a small attendance and numbers. But as the state has reduced and lessening the requirements. So are we. We want to do that very slowly and intentionally in order for us to finish strong. We're going to also continue our mitigating strategy. So you may have heard in the news that the CDC announced that anyone who is fully vaccinated may not wear a mask anymore. We're going to wait for the state's guidance on May 19th, what may happen. This is going to be a lot of the planning that we'll be preparing for over the summer and what the schools will look like next year. But that said, we hope that we will continue to avoid any quarantines by continuing our mitigating factors, and look forward to having that promotion ceremony. Again, some people say, hey, Vince, don't say that we're at 0 right now because you're putting out that something's going to happen. We want to be positive. We want to be confident, but something may happen. A class may get quarantined, and if those classes that are having a promotion ceremony, so for example, if a 6th grade class at any school has to be quarantined and it's the second to last day of school, which those are the ceremonies, we will have an event for those students when it's time and when all the students in that class could participate. So we want to be prepared for that. As far as personnel, there's no new hires to report. We continually have these open positions, as I've stated in the past. Summer school opportunities, a special education resource room teacher, substitutes with teachers, custodians, security, and kitchen. Negotiations, you may recall I shared that at the last board meeting. Our board's attorney is working with the union reps to discuss dates. Serving on a negotiating committee is Mr. Kraut, Mrs. Brow, Betty, I'm holding my glasses, where are my glasses? Mrs. Hadlock and Mr. Young. So we're looking for those dates, and we'll be sharing that and updating you as those come. So that includes my report. In a moment, I have asked Mr. Gray to share, again, the final budget numbers. The referendum is occurring this Thursday. In addition to that, there's some updates with the grants that we are receiving. That's going to even trickle down to Dr. Russo's report about our summer planning, and ready for any questions that you may have right now.
For Dr. Scarpetti? Very well. Thank you, Doctor. Mr. Gray?
Good evening, everyone. As Dr. Scarpetti mentioned, I'm going to be updating you all about the grants that we've been receiving in our budget. I'll start with the grants. As mentioned during last month's Board of Education meeting, the school district has received several grants from the federal government. The first grants were the Coronavirus Relief Fund, or CRF grant, and that was in the amount of $444,000. And the Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief, or ESSER 1 grant. You probably hear us talking about ESSER over and over again. That's what that is. And that was in the amount of $30,000. Both grants have been fully spent or committed, and these monies will be drawn down from the state in full by the end of this June. We did receive those grants back in April, by the way, so we've been using those since April to prepare. Really, a lot of those funds were to prepare to open schools back up. We also received Elementary and Secondary Schools Emergency Relief 2, ESSER's 2 grant, and that application was finalized and applied for on April 26th. Orange received an allocation of $164,000 for the ESSER 2 grant, which is to be used for addressing learning loss among students, purchasing educational technology, providing mental health services and supports, school facility repairs and improvements to reduce the risk of virus transmission or improve indoor air quality, as well as other activities necessary to maintain the operation and continuity of services. These funds are available until September 30th of 2023. So we do have time to plan how we're going to be using these funds and make sure we're intentional about using them. We recently received information regarding our allocation for the American Rescue Plan, which is also known as the ARP ESSER 3. Orange has been awarded $325,952. These funds will be used for similar purposes mentioned in the ESSER 2 outline. In addition, for this grant, 20% of this has to be set aside, which is approximately $65,190, and it's dedicated to learning loss via evidence-based interventions. These funds are available until September 30th of 2024, and the central office administrative staff are currently collaborating on a detailed plan for their use. That's the grants update. I don't know if anybody has questions before I move on to the budget. Okay. The 2021-22 budget, as Dr. Scarpetti said, there will be a town budget referendum this Thursday, May 20th. The Orange Board of Education 2021-22 budget was voted on and passed on February 8th. The budget was at that time $22,353,196, which was an increase of 4.38% over the previous year. The Board of Education budget was presented by the superintendent to the Orange Board of Finance on Monday evening, March 8th. The Orange Board of Finance voted to provide the Orange Board of Education funding in the amount of $243,780 from the Town Reserve Capital Fund, thus reducing the Board of Education budget by that amount. The Board of Finance has also requested an additional reduction of $100,000 from the Board of Education budget, monies which may come from the ESSER 2 or ARP ESSER 3 grants, because we are allowed to use those to supplant parts of our budget. As such, the Board of Education budget that Dr. Scarpetti presented at the annual budget hearing on April 21st was $22,009,416, which is an increase of 2.78% over last year. And that's our budget update. Questions?
Questions for Mr. Gray on that? Anyone?
I know you said that you're still in the planning stages for what you're going to be doing with the money, but do you anticipate any extra staff to help accommodate learning loss?
So what we're looking at currently, first and foremost, is our summer school program and making sure that we are inviting students to that. And I think Dr. Russo will be speaking a little bit more to that. We are looking into whether or not we will need extra staff to help with that learning loss, or any types of programs that we may institute to target that learning loss. You're welcome.
Anyone else? Okay.
And facilities as well,
Do you want to do facilities, Mr. Gray?
if you'd like to hear about
I
facilities.
think we do.
They're short, actually. I just wanted to give a quick HVAC system update. Training was provided to authorized district staff by Connecticut Temperature Control to provide a better understanding when performing maintenance to the school district building HVAC systems through the automated online building maintenance system. Functions within the BMS system were set up to allow for staff to receive alerts in the event of any issues with the HVAC system in each of the buildings. So there are several of us who received the training, and for instance, you can feel it's a little bit cooler in here this evening, so we were able to work out the bugs finally for this air handling unit. The issue that caused the problem in the first place was that frost built up on our heating element and caused it to crack. No one got an alert for that. In the future, if that happens, we get an alert, an email alert, so we know to shut the system down before damage is done. So that's part of what this new training provided for us. And finally, food services. We continue to encourage all students and their siblings to take advantage of free lunch for the remainder of the school year. It's good to see that more lunches are being served with each new month. We saw our largest participation to date during the month of April. Every lunch served helps the district to recoup expenses of running the school lunch program. So families, please consider choosing a free school lunch during the remaining days of school. And that concludes my report.
Other questions? Any other questions for Mr. Gray? Betty? Oh, no, okay. Any? Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Thank you very much.
Dr. Russo?
Good evening, everyone. Mr. Gray, you make me want to learn about HVAC systems. So I'd like to start by sharing an update regarding our summer learning. As mentioned at our last meeting, summer learning opportunities will be supported by ESSER 2 funds, which Mr. Gray and Dr. Scarpetti mentioned. We did share a summer learning interest survey with every single family, and I'm so excited to say that we have 250 students interested in coming to summer school. When we take into account the incoming kindergartners, and that number might be about 50 additional students, we're looking at about 300 students coming to summer school. And then Mrs. Ito will share an update about the numbers coming to ESY. So we may be up to about 350 children coming this summer. So we, traditionally, summer learning is 8:30 to 11:30. It's 3 hours. We added flexibility this year, so there are options. Students can come for 1, 2, or 3 hours. We have some interesting courses in addition to reading and math. We have art, technology, physical education, inventions, yoga, meditation, and a few others. And the survey that we sent out about 2 weeks ago closed on Friday, so we are excited to design a program to meet the needs of the children who are coming. We feel that from the survey, we have a good handle on those needs, in addition to our data-driven information from our SRBI meetings, or our scientifically research-based intervention meetings that are critical for some of the use of the ESSER funds. So I did mention a little bit about the kind of kindergarten readiness program for summer learning. In about 2 weeks, we will invite every incoming kindergartner for an individual meeting to identify current readiness so that we can really prepare to hit the ground running in September for those students. So that's kind of it for summer learning. For Smarter Balance Assessment, we're almost finished with that. It was the first time ever that we engaged in remote proctoring, and it went well. We only had 2 small glitches that I know of, which were remedied pretty easily. Once again, those scores do not count for the Connecticut State Department of Education Accountability Report. And finally, our library media specialists are working to update our library collections at each of the schools. So that's about it for now.
Any questions for Dr. Russo?
I have
Susan?
just a quick one. You said there's quite a few students that are going to be attending summer learning. Where are they going to be holding it? Will it be here, or will it be at one of the other schools? Do we know that yet?
We believe Mr. Gray is working on figuring that out.
Okay, thank you.
I just want to say how delighted I am that the survey, that so many parents responded to the survey and that they've expressed interest. I know last month I talked about the fact that I thought offering extended opportunities for students of all levels would be important. So thank you for taking that on.
You're welcome, and you know what, Mrs. Hadlock, our team knew that you would be excited about that.
Anyone else for Dr. Russo? Thank you, Doctor. Mrs. Ito?
First of all, happy birthday, Kim. Different from the summer learning program that Dr. Russo discussed, the special ed department is responsible for extended school year programming each year, otherwise known as ESY. So I just wanted to inform you that we are preparing for this program. It is based on children's individual education plans who qualify for this service. That program runs at the same synchronously with Dr. Russo, July 6th through August 5th. And specific information will be communicated to the families directly of those eligible students. fairly new coming out of the State Department of Education is an announcement that the Connecticut CT SEDS will be implemented as of July 22nd. So the Connecticut Department of Education will be offering a comprehensive statewide special education data system known as CT SEDS. It will be available to all school districts beginning July 2022. CT SEDS is an adaptive electronic individual education program, or IEP document, and it is being designed to improve format and flow of information with intuitive, easy-to-use displays. The new system will include a parent portal for families. That is not something we've offered before, and even better than that, the student's IEP will be translated in many, many different languages based on the family's needs. So very excited about that. The new and improved document will also assist planning and placement teams in navigating the special education process, which is a very legal process, as I'm sure you can imagine, and therefore will assist the teams in developing even more high-quality IEPs. That's all I have for this evening. Yes, Betty?
Go ahead, Betty.
Yeah, that sounds very exciting. I'm just wondering, do you anticipate that a lot of training will be needed by your staff? And,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I'm actually going to my first training next week. I've invited my administrative assistant and our school psychologist to attend that very initial training, but most of the training will be provided first by the State Department Ed after January of next year. And then
Okay.
I do anticipate having to support our school-based staff.
Yeah.
And
But a lot of that could probably happen during professional days, do you
yes,
anticipate?
that's what we're hoping.
Yeah,
And
okay.
they'll also have a lot of training recorded, so we can engage in that
Okay.
at times that is more convenient for districts, rather than having everybody out,
Yeah.
which is the old school way
Right,
of doing things.
right.
Now that we are virtual, have all those capabilities of remote learning, I'm sure they'll be capitalizing a lot on that.
Okay. Well, it sounds like a rollout with thinking behind it, so that's great.
Yes, yeah, the state
Thank
has been
you.
working on this for several years to,
Okay.
and then vetted it through different vendors to switch over to a data collection system that
And I'm
can
sure
meet
parents
the
will be
needs.
very grateful.
I think it'll be nice for families to be able to access
Yeah.
that information, and especially in their own language. Thank you.
Anything else from Mrs. Ito? Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to board business. We have a group of second reads to get through. Policy second read 3232, IDEA fiscal compliance. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3232, IDEA fiscal compliance, as presented this evening? Susan, second. Betty, any further discussion on this policy? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Very well. Policy second read 3326, Board of Education credit card. Unfortunately, this does not involve me. I was very disappointed in that. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3326, Board of Education credit card, as presented? Do I have a motion? Betty? Susan? Any further discussion on this policy? Anyone? All right, all in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Policy second read 3516.11, hazardous materials communication. Do I have a motion to accept policy 3516.11, hazardous materials, as presented? Motion? Carmen? Betty, second? Any further discussion on this policy? All in favor? Opposed? Abstained? Very good. Let's see here. Okay. Policy read 9130, committees. Do I have a motion to accept policy 9130, committees, as presented? Charles? Susan? Any discussion on this? Charles?
Yeah, as always, I thank Mrs. Bro and her team for reviewing all this. And one of the things I particularly liked, particular to our Buildings and Grounds Subcommittee, is the piece of this that says, "The committee reviews its past initiatives and assesses current realities, and in cooperation with the superintendent and staff with the wider community, to develop priorities and establish short and long-term goals and objectives for the school district to achieve," which is really a big part of, I think, our most recent meeting and really a lot of the work that we're doing with the long-term goals. And certainly, I think working with the wider community to kind of accomplish some of that is a welcome goal. So thank you to the committee.
I would also thank Mrs. Brow for getting this policy through and reviewed and presented to us as quickly as she did, and thank you to the policy committee as well. It's a job well done. So any further discussion on this? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Discussion, class size, policy 6151.
So at this time, in May, we go over the policy. Currently, we present the enrollment numbers at our budget workshop to plan for how many teachers we will need. You will see the latest and updated numbers that are in front and on your desk. You see a highlighted class that I've shared, and I've shared at the budget workshop and at subsequent meetings, even at the Board of Finance meetings I've shared, that's a class that we want to keep an eye on, and that's the grade 3 at Turkey Hill School, which will be a 4th grade. Currently, there are 23 students in that class. Parents have vocalized concern about if those numbers increase. That's something I also shared with the board, and so we want to be aware of that. And as you may see, at the bottom of the document, I stated, if needed, an aide or a teacher would be added. Why do I say an aide or a teacher? Is because we don't know yet. I think many of you have been on the board for some years. Where our students fall over the summer is going to impact. So we're talking about Turkey Hill School, grade 3 going to grade 4. But if you look, there's some other classrooms at Racebrook, 2 at Racebrook, 2 at Peck Place. If students fall there, I may have to go to the board or the Board of Finance in order to get aides or another teacher. The other thing that I want to point out to the board as we prepare to possibly change the sections in our grade is our kindergarten class. Right now, we projected 150 students next year. We currently have 146 students enrolled. We have 10 teachers. One thing that we've changed with your support is having a full-time aide in those classrooms, and that was due to the pandemic. At the budget workshop, we've asked, and you supported that, to continue. So, and I think I'm looking across the room here. Many of you know, when I first came here, we had 22 students in our kindergarten classroom when I first came here with part-time aides. So if that number stays the same, there may be an FTE, full-time employment, that we can move that teacher to another grade depending on what those numbers are when we get closer to the school year. So currently I'm proposing the enrollment and sections as is, but I'm welcome any questions that you may have that I may have not answered in my presentation.
Any questions for Dr. Scarpetti? Charles?
So if I understand what I guess you're asking for us to not take any action on this tonight, but to postpone a month?
This is a decision for the board to make on that one, Mr. Flynn. Right now, I'm presenting of where we are, where I'm presenting that I'm comfortable with the numbers that you see in front of us. We joke about that magic ball of where students may fall. Again, I talked about symbolism of where we've changed with the pandemic. We've had 8 students enroll back into our school district this past month, which you may have seen in your correspondence. If those 8 students all went to Turkey Hill School or the other school, then I'd be saying, hey, we're changing it today. Coincidentally, they fell, and again, those were families that were homeschooling, but I think because of their comfortableness of where we are as a school district, they've re-enrolled their students back in. So I'm presenting that I'm comfortable with this, but as a board, it's your choice to decide to either go with my suggestion right now or do as you wish.
I certainly recognize that. I think board members will remember I was earlier in the budget season very supportive of, at that time, adding a full teaching position. And while it's not my role as a board member to say where it goes, I think certainly your highlighted class section at Turkey Hill may be a strong candidate for that. And like many of the other board members, I've also heard from some of the parents concerned here. So I would be interested in other board members' opinion. And if not tonight, I would like to readdress this again in June because I do find that a bit high. And while it's not my job to say where an extra position would go, and there, as Dr. Scarpetti alluded to, there's many moving pieces to that, I would be supportive of considering adding a section there at the superintendent's discretion. And I guess I'm interested in some of the other board members' opinions, whether this is the time or whether we should revisit this in June. From my opinion, if these numbers were to stay consistent with where they are, I think it certainly may warrant an extra session. And if that were the case and the board were to support it, I'd rather have that, approved and moving forward in June, or if the board chooses not to support it. But that would give, if necessary, the superintendent possibly more time to prepare and a better pool of applicants to prepare as well. So I guess I'm interested in what other people think as well.
Okay.
I
Dr.
would-
Scarp,
Oh, I'm sorry, Betty.
go ahead, Bill.
I would remind everyone that this class size, we are not limited by any time as to when to address it. If Dr. Scarpetti comes to this board or comes to me tomorrow and says, look, we just got a bunch of kids in here and we need some more teachers, if need be, we would call a special meeting. So this is something that we can do and we have done in the past, prior to some of you being on the board, and we've gotten support from the Board of Finance if we've asked for additional people. So we don't constantly need to review it. If you would like it to be reviewed, I don't have any issue with that, and I'm sure Dr. Scarpetti doesn't have any issue with it. We get this report every month anyway. But just bear in mind that if there comes a situation where in the Dr. Scarpetti's opinion and his staff that we need an additional teacher, we will take action then. And we've done that before. But anyhow, go ahead, Betty. That's all I wanted to say.
Some clarification, Dr. Scarpetti. You said we added 8 students who were homeschooled. I'm trying to decide if that means these were remote students who are now back in the building, or these are homeschooled students who were
Yeah,
never
so just
part
a
of the
clear-
student body.
Yes. So just to clarify, if you are homeschooling, you're not a part of the school district.
Right.
If you are choosing to learn remotely, you are included in these numbers.
Okay.
So these are families that decided to homeschool their students. The other piece is, I think it had to do with the pandemic increasing, but I think there's been some talk with regards of the vaccinations about no more religious exemption. So I think because of those two forces, some parents decided to re-enroll their students back into our school
Yeah,
system.
that just seems very unusual to me to be doing that in May of a school year, but that's why I wanted to make sure I understood. I also want to say that based upon your numbers and recommendation, I'm comfortable with where we are right now, knowing that we could always revisit this and add a teacher if necessary. I also went over to ask you before the meeting, because I was looking at the total enrollment numbers on the sheet we got with the remote learning. It says 1262, and the projected enrollment is only 1175. And you did clarify for me that that total enrollment does include 52 pre-Ks. So that tells me that there's 1,210 students in K to 6, and your projected enrollment is 1175 for next year, which is a minus 35 students. So in that way, that makes me also comfortable that there may be some moving around that can happen.
In the past, and correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Scarpetti, it may not have been with you. We have moved teachers here and there when to balance out the student to teacher ratio from different schools to where the need was. So that's always available to us as well.
Correct. So let's talk about one scenario, Mr. Crow. If these numbers were exactly the same when the first day of school, I may go to the board and look at that kindergarten class that has 10 teachers and move one of those sections, or not the section, but move and create a section at that Turkey Hill, because again, they would have a full-time aide in each of those classrooms. In addition to that, their class size would be the same as it is right now, about 16, 17 kids in a class.
Great thing to do, because we don't really want to lay people off. We don't have to. Good, so.
I did want to make a comment. Charles, you asked for some feedback, and I agree with you. I don't like our numbers inching up, but I also don't want to make a decision based on today's numbers. To me, right now, I'm fine with a fourth grade class of having an average of 23 kids right now. You know, if that goes up to 24, 25, 26 or whatever, I might have a different conversation. But, to me right now, I'm okay with it, knowing that we can do it tomorrow or, before school starts. So.
And I think the other element where I'm not just putting the hope or definitely faith out there, I'm putting out there is, we are expecting next year in the environment that we're dealing with next year, the amount of challenges our teachers and faculty had to confront this year has made it an extraordinary efforts that I know all of you have complimented our staff and teachers this year. I know we have done it on countless occasions, and they've done what they've had to do. But we're also hoping, because of having a more familiar year of having students in person, that will also help with any challenges that a teacher, a school, a building may have in a non-pandemic year.
And pandemic year. Anyone else have any questions or comments for Dr. Scarpetti? Kim?
I just want to address Charles. I appreciate your perspective, and I love that you're bringing it up. And I just want to give a very, very, very brief history. When we revisited this policy, I think we all thought we were going to go in and come out with a class size number, and we didn't. And I think that was actually really great that we didn't, because what we did was we really communicated a philosophy that the educators would look at the group of students in a particular grade and make a decision about what's best for them. Because if we had said, I don't know, 17 or 19, who cares, for a particular grade, then there may be a class that needs more and actually needs to be at 15, but there could be a grade that, would be great at like 23. And so I really have a lot of appreciation for the policy that we developed, and that there are ongoing conversations, because that was the other thing. I think we weren't always formally revisiting the conversation. And so, yes, we're saying May, but just to echo Bill's sentiment that we could do this in June, we can do it again in July, but what we can always trust is that the educators are doing what's best for the kids, know that we will support their recommendations.
100% right, because that was the gist of the policy, to give us flexibility and not to lock in one specific number. It was a range. And I would agree with Charles, 23, we're on the cusp there. So I trust Dr. Scarpetti and his staff, and I also trust that the board and the Board of Finance will do what's right for the kids if it needs to be done. Go ahead, Charles.
No, thank you, and I certainly, again, as a board member, I have, the trust of our administration. I just, the two thoughts there. One, I completely agree with Mrs. Burrow about the policy, and to Chairman Kraut's comments just before that. There's certainly many ways to address this. I guess one possibility is, though, that if it does need to be adding a teacher, which is just one way of addressing this, I would be much more comfortable with doing that in June or July rather than August, because if it's not moving current personnel into this possible section, it would be adding or searching, and the pool of candidates, I think, might be wider and deeper at that time. So I don't sense from the board there's a sense of urgency to add a position, and I will trust the superintendent as I speak here tonight. I guess I would just ask for us to be able to discuss again in June with updated numbers, Mr. Chairman.
That's fine with me. Dr. Scarpetti, if we'll just get that on the agenda, Mary, for June, discuss the updated numbers, whether they've changed or where they've changed, and we can do, that's fine.
Yeah. And Mr. Flynn, I appreciate you having the perspective of the timing piece. You know, if we know now, yes, going through that process, hiring a teacher, one of the things that we've done, and we've been fortunate, is, which the board support, is hiring permanent subs. It does two things. One, because of the impact with regards to if a teacher happened to become COVID positive or quarantine, we needed those resources. And that's something we're addressing again for next year to even hire more. But it also gave us the lens of seeing certified teachers and their performance. So we've talked about this and planned for the worst, basically, and have a lens of some good teachers that may be on hand if they're needed too. So, but I do appreciate your perspective and knowing that that takes some time to do so.
Anyone else for Dr. Scarpetti on this topic? We good? Thank you, Doctor. The comment about the agenda reminded me of something that I forgot to say earlier in the meeting. As of right now, folks, I would plan on a July meeting because I think we're going to have a fair amount of work to do, but we'll make that decision in June. But as of right now, I would say we will be having a July meeting. I just didn't want to forget to do that because I know people want to make plans. Okay? Oh, you can get back up there, Dr. Scarpetti. Getting your exercise in today.
What's
That's going to go into executive session, correct? That's what you want?
Mr. Kraut.
Yeah, okay, so superintendent's recommendation for Racebrook School principal, we will be going into executive session at the end, well, not at the end of the meeting, after we're through the agenda, all right? Update on Mr. Tim Smith's sign, Sue?
Yes, I heard back from the sign company, and they had done a draft. I'm going to send it this way first, because it doesn't usually go this way first. But it's a sign, it's 30 by 60, 2 inches, they'll install it. The color that they currently have, it shows happens to show in a green. We'll have to discuss color, but it has a picture of Tim Smith on it. It says the Orange Board of Education honors Timothy J. Smith, and it says for his dedication to the students of Orange. And the idea was that the sign would be, like I said, 30 by 60, 2 inches deep, with painted colors. The picture will be digitally printed, letters will be carved, and the sign will be installed with 3-inch steel poles, which that will be painted whatever color we want them to be. And if we wanted to add gold leaf, we could. And so the idea was that we would put it somewhere between Mariel and the fire department, and Bill volunteered to walk if you all decide that this is something that we want to do in honor of Tim. So the cost on it right now, with no additional gold leaf or anything bigger or crazier, is $2,300. And that was the actually lowest quote we got. I got 3 quotes. And it actually was the first place that I contacted. Thoughts?
Thank you, Susan, for doing all the research on this. I think it's important to recognize Tim Smith. My own feeling is that a sign like that. I know what happens to signs over time. I really feel it'd be much more appropriate and, in my opinion, better to have plaques in the school where students see them every day and honoring Tim Smith. I think those last. They're there. There's walls of honor or some such thing in most of the schools here in town, and I think plaques would be better suited.
That's a valid point. I think that we were thinking of, because of where we're located next to the fire station, that would kind of almost be like Tim's looking over at the fire station. But that's a valid point that we can discuss. I mean, in fact, maybe we'll just, that particular sign is nice. If we got smaller plaques and put them in the school,
Yeah, we can put
that's an
something
idea
similar in.
as well.
I'll get prices for,
Yeah.
I just think
Suited all four
those
schools.
last,
Yeah.
students actually see them and are reminded, and signs like this, I know that they start out looking good, but they fade and.
Okay.
And that's.
Good point. Anyone else have anything to add to this discussion? Go ahead, Charles.
No, firstly, thank you to Susan for looking into this, and I think we all agree that, we just want to get it right, because this was someone who really was a incredible contributor to our community, but specifically, in my role here with Buildings and Grounds, I think, it's a strange thing to say, but how many things didn't happen because of his hard work in keeping students safe. And to Betty's point, it's, I guess, it made me think how much it would, to have this. I think to Chairman Kraut's point, the location to me is very powerful because it's in between our offices here and the fire department. But at the same time, having students have some type of regular interaction or seeing this, someone who I believe, grew up and graduated from these schools and came back and contributed and used professional talents to the community, that's also appealing. So, I don't want to undermine what Susan's already done, and I'm not saying I don't support it, but I also agree with Betty that the more this resonates with the community, I think that it'd be powerful as well.
Oh, go ahead, Sue.
Charles, I agree with you wholeheartedly. My initial thought was to do 4 plaques in each school as well. I figured we'd look just to see so the people in the community could see it as well. But I'm for either or. I don't, I won't be insulted if we decide to go do the plaques, because that's where we're going initially.
As a board, we like to have choices, and I believe in choices. If Susan would be kind enough to look into the plaques, I would appreciate that. And then we can see what we can do with it from that point, and then we'll eventually settle on something, vote on it, and then take the necessary steps. But I appreciate the addition to the conversation there, Betty. That was good comments. Anybody else? Kim?
Did you talk about them with any other way of, like, alternative signs? Like, it's a sign, like, I mean, the first thing I think of is a bench, but it doesn't have to be a bench, but there's, like, I don't know if they have some creative ideas of things that they've done that sort of have that message, but just display it in a different way. Off the top of my head, I'm not coming off with anything creative, but they do this, so they may have some ideas.
I can check. Absolutely.
Because I think something that's large and it's I do love that location, and something that does attract the attention of the town. It could be and, not or, that we could have something in the schools and something there, but I'm just wondering what else that might be a little more permanent or lasting.
Okay, we also have Fred Wolfe Park, which is going to be developed. Is that right, Charles? Are you on that committee, did I hear? The playground committee? And, that's going to be a space that's going to be used by everybody in town. Whether that might be an appropriate place for something, I don't know. Just,
Keep working on it, but we'll get it right in the end. Anyone else? And again, thank you, Susan, for taking the time. I do appreciate it. Okay, we'll move on to standing committees. Finance and Operations, Ms. Rizzio.
Finance and Operations met prior to this. Everything was in order. Nothing really has significantly changed from prior year, from prior month. Other than cafeteria numbers are getting better, which is good. Please take a lunch. And 21st Century has sent out a letter to all families if they're interested in coming to 21st Century for next year. There's a process for it. A letter went out and explained the process. So we're hoping that we have a good turnout for next year.
Speaking of 21st Century, is there going to be a fee structure change? Or is that something still under
To the
discussion?
best of my knowledge, it's not right now, but
Okay.
I will double check.
Questions for Ms. Riggio? Okay. Oh, I can't even pretend to read what's next without my glasses. Personnel and policy.
So the committee met at the end of April and had two main agenda items. The first one was the class size, just to review the policy and know that we were ready to discuss it today. And then also to address the homework policy, which was so exciting. It was at least 2 years ago that maybe 3, that we talked about addressing a homework policy. And that came out of, sort of parents in the community and like wanting a homework policy. And this was prior to all this work on curriculum, which I'm getting goosebumps again. And I just have to say, as a teacher, as a parent, as a board member, I am in awe of the work that this district has done from top to bottom. It is really amazing, and it's so exciting, because I remember Evelyn saying, well, we shouldn't really do that now. That would be better when we've done all this curriculum work. Well, here we are, and we just went through a year of COVID, and yet still here we are. And so I'm just so excited that we have started the discussion about the homework policy. Where the committee is now is that really the homework policy that will probably result will be led by the educators, because that's where it should come from, and that it will be probably more philosophical than prescriptive, and that it will focus on personalized learning, individualization, differentiation, and really emphasizing students being self-navigating learners and having choice. And it is just really exciting to be a part of this district.
Questions for Mrs. Brown? Charles?
No, and I believe our committee was meeting on the same day as the curriculum committee that also explored that. And just similar to her, Mrs. Bro's comments, as a professional teacher in a district where homework tried to be micromanaged by the board, it was not a great idea. And I think we have very talented professionals in our leadership and in our teaching staff that really, that this, policy would be best left to. And I certainly support the work that Mrs. Brow described there.
Anyone else? Okay, Charles, we'll move on to you. Buildings and grounds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and my apologies, I don't have my glasses, so I may do a couple double takes here. Buildings and grounds met this past Monday, May 10th, 2021 at 4:30 in the Peck Place Library. There was no public participation. We were treated to a tour of the Peck Place parking lot and playground. I think in general, we found some updates. We got to see some of the painting that was done over the past year. There is a new bike rack, and I believe Mr. Gray is to thank for it being in the Peck Place Panther blue. Mr. Cap noticed some of the painting of the doors also in the Peck Place Panther blue. And we got to see some of the improvements that were taking place. We did also take a look at the playground. On the day that we were there, it was not usable due to flooding. And there has been some improvement to try to address some of the drainage. And my understanding is that that will continue next school year to hopefully improve not only the drainage, but also the, what's the word I'm looking for here? Yes, the surface of that playground. So something to look forward to next fall. We also had on our agenda to discuss possible improvements to our security. kind of with the guiding question, what, if anything, can do to, examine what we are doing. And so next month, we are meeting on June 14th at Turkey Hill School, and Mr. Gray and Dr. Scarpetti will share some research about what surrounding towns are doing and what, if any, possible improvements they could see regarding qualifications, responsibilities, roles, and licensing of our security personnel. We also had a facilities update from Mr. Gray. He shared most of that in his part of the meeting this evening. He was kind enough to research some additional air conditioning numbers for Turkey Hill and Racebrook School. And we did have some discussion on that as well, including possible window units versus other things. And I did want to, on a similar vein, and I apologize here, I should have brought my glasses, but several months ago I mentioned that the Connecticut legislature was proposing a bill regarding indoor air quality in schools. It's my understanding when I checked this afternoon that that bill was unanimously voted out of committee, and I believe it is still a possibility. That is Bill 288. That's an act concerning indoor air quality in schools. I'm not going to obviously read the whole thing. I believe I shared it with the board members earlier in the spring. But one of the proposed features for that would be that gymnasiums be kept under a certain temperature, I believe 85 degrees, and if they can't be, that they would be closed, as well as schools meeting other HVAC improvements. So something that may be impacting us at some point here for that. We had also an exploration of the long-term planning, as all the members know, in our various subcommittees. Each of the subcommittee is a part of the piece of our long-term planning, and we had thought about doing kind of a template across subcommittees, but Mr. Gray was able to present a draft of what he's working on, and I just wanted to highlight for all the board members some of the very impressive work that is taking place, including kind of the hierarchy of overseeing our buildings and grounds, the staffing responsibilities, first year goals, years 2 and 3 main goals, setting maintenance priorities. A big part of, I think, what the team is hoping to change and what Mr. Gray, I think, is working very hard on is a lot of what our work is currently is reactionary. I believe he estimated about 90% of our work is kind of reacting to problems and about 10% is planned maintenance, and where I think we're probably hoping to kind of flip that as best we can. Some of the other things that were very exciting is working with some of our town partners in Public Works, building, fire, police, and park and rec, and exploring our scheduled service contracts. We even, in this draft, saw, kind of a daily schedule for the custodians and obviously long-term planning for capital projects. So I think our subcommittee is, probably going to use the work that Mr. Gray is in progress looking at as opposed to that template form. I would certainly defer to any of the subcommittee members, but I found it very exciting and incredibly forward-thinking and really getting our facilities kind of on a proactive piece, and the fact that this was able to be so far along in a year where we were in a pandemic and there was a lot of immediate responsibilities, I found very impressive, and I was very grateful to see a lot of the hard work that was done. We are scheduled to meet as a subcommittee June 14th at Turkey Hill School. Mr. Kraut mentioned we will probably be possibly meeting at the board in July, so we're tentatively scheduled July 12th here at MLT. And then August 23rd, we proposed a tour of all the schools as opposed to a formal meeting to see them, their condition, getting ready for the beginning of school. And September 13th, we will be at Racebrook School. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for Mr. Flynn? Very well, thank you. Curriculum instruction, Kim, are you going to do this for Ken? Yeah.
Sure. When Ken said that he might not be here today, I was like, I'm just going to pretend I didn't see that because I cannot fill his shoes. Like he put such love into his reports. So the committee did meet, and one of the topics that came up was Dr. Scarpetti letting us know that the district does not anticipate that the district will offer remote learning next year. And in the back of my mind, I was like, well, I hope so. Really? Like, do you think that'll happen? And last week was such, a big week. And so I really do believe you now, Dr. Scarpetti, that I don't anticipate that, but we're ready to, right? And that's what's really exciting. We're ready to. So then that led us to the question of the cameras that we have in all the classrooms, and the district intends to keep those classrooms because they can be used as ways to connect students across the district, possibly provide instruction on as an alternative to snow days, and then teachers and students will most certainly find creative ways to use them. Those were really good purchases. And then finally, in case you didn't hear me before, curriculum instruction also talked about the homework policy. And I was so excited to talk about the homework policy because I am in awe of the work that everyone has done over the past couple of years in curriculum. And it's just exciting to be here.
Questions for Mrs. Brow? Very well. ACES, Ms. Riccio.
Thank you. So ACES met on last Thursday, May 13th, with a full meeting. We are fully remote still with the board meetings. We have some people who are not comfortable being there live and didn't want to miss out on the fun. So we did one of our last meetings. We have one more meeting, and then ACES is not meeting over the summer. That may change. But long and the short of it is that during this meeting, we went over the financials like we always do. I'm chair of the financials, surprise. And ACES is in a surplus, which is good. Tuition-related projections are good. Services continue to be positive. They're doing some reallocation of special ed schools so that there's more consistency. And that we're having the right schools for the right services that are needed. There's been a little bit of shift, so it seems to be, it will help. And then our magnet schools, some good news is that currently our Wintergreen School is based in North Haven. And we're using a state of Connecticut building with the anticipation of either buying the building or obtaining the building from the state. It used to be Gateway Community College. In North Haven, that's where their automotive thing is, and they still currently have their automotive piece there. And they're planning on moving that out of there. And the state, we've applied to, in essence, be able to take over that school. And the state, my understanding, was signing off on that today or tomorrow, so that ACES would have a building that could grow with this Wintergreen Magnet School, which is doing really well. Despite the move, it was kind of a difficult move going from Hamden to North Haven. We had so many students in Hamden at Wintergreen Magnet School. And so we were a little bit late in getting this building, but it's gotten back up, and the opportunities are endless. There was an architect that showed us some plans for some of the planned remodeling to make it so it's correct for this age group of students. It's middle school age right now. It's 5 through 8, but the idea is it could expand to, K to 8 if we want to. So that's what the plan is on that. And then we have our other Thomas Edison Middle School. It's a magnet school that will be moving to the Chase facility in Waterbury, and we're closing on that this week. Everything has been dotted. The judges approved it. There's a lot of stuff going on, but hopefully we'll have all our I's dotted and T's crossed. And it's a great opportunity for anybody, any town, and because it allows kids to go to a STEM or STEAM school. A lot of the schools to the, I don't know whether it's east or west, but like closer to Waterbury area, the valley, there's more opportunities for them as opposed to the one school that's in their town. So we've already gotten very similar amount of students that were at Thomas Edison that are projected to go to the new school. So it's all very exciting. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Riggio? Thank you. All right, so, Dr. Scarpetti, would you and Dr. Russo like to join us in executive session?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all right, so I need a motion to adjourn into executive session. Do I have a motion? No, we're adjourning into executive session. Along with Dr. Scarpetti and Dr. Russo. Okay, do I have a motion to do that? Susan, second. Charles, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstain? Okay, we are in executive session. Thank you. Did you get that, Mary? Okay, we are out of executive session. Susan, would you please read the motion?
Motion is to accept the superintendent's recommendation on the candidate for principal for Racebrook School.
Do I have a motion?
I just
Betty, do I have a second? Ken, any further discussion on this? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Opposed, abstain? So be it. All right, we need to adjourn out of this evening's meeting. I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Charles always wanted to do
I'm in
that, I
proud.
know. Very good. All right, Charles, second by Susan.
Yes.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Unanimous.
Unanimous. Opposed, abstained?
51.
We are adjourned at
8:51.
8:51. Thank you very much.